Hi, I'm Maddie Harvey and this is episode number 3. Thank you everybody who bought the Zaztruga shawl after the last episode. I know I've seen at least one being knitted up on Instagram from Linda, which is really lovely to see. She's done it in this great gradient yarn in a kind of blue and white, which really fits in with the snow theme, so it looks lovely. If you're knitting any of my patterns, then you can tag me on Instagram. You can either do hashtag Maddie Harvey Designs or you can do hashtag Harvey Knits, and every so often I go in and have a wee look at them and I'll hopefully see yours. It's really nice to see people's versions of my patterns knitted up. So I'm going to start today by talking about what I'm wearing, which is my my first garment design, which is in this month's Knit Now magazine. So I'll just show you. So this came out last Friday, and it's got quite a lot of Christmassy knits in. But this is my jumper down here. So it's called Takuma, and it is based on the idea of a kind of oversized outdoor jumper that you could wear camping or when you're you know, out in the garden in the autumn time and maybe you don't want to put your coat on but you need another layer. And this issue, there's a bit of a theme of the Pacific Northwest, and it's curated by Rennie Callahan, who is originally from that area. So she has this really lovely cardigan here, and then there is a jumper from Kate Heppel, who's the editor of Knit Now, and then my jumper and a couple of other things. So this is inspired by a year that I spent in that area of the States when I was at university, and there's a huge mountain called Mount Rainier in that area, and it's so massive that you just see it on the horizon wherever you are. And I think when because I'm from Scotland and I'm used to sort of seeing mountains and hills, it was quite nice to see Mount Rainier on the horizon. It was almost like something familiar when you're in a pretty unfamiliar place. So that's where this sort of inspiration came from. So it's got a bit of colour work. This is just some garter stitching around with one round in each colour, so it makes quite a nice textured effect. It's very oversized, so you could put lots of layers underneath. So the original one in the magazine is knitted in West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious yarn, which is alpaca, 70% wool and 30% alpaca. So that's a cream and a pale blue. And my version here is knitted in the Daughter of a Shepherd, Hebridean, the DK, and then this paler colour is actually from Uist wool. It's one of their DK weights. I think it's got Cheviot in it. It was really lovely to work with. And this one smells really sheepy, which is just lovely. And I've worn it loads actually the last sort of couple of weeks. It's really cosy. So I think if you want to get a copy of this, you probably need to get it sooner rather than later. I think it's a pretty popular one. It comes in a box this time, and it has quite a few gifts in it, free gifts. It's a really nice issue. So on to this week's shawl. I thought I would feature my Demelza shawl, which has had a sort of double life almost. It was originally in Knit Now magazine last year, actually this time last year, and it was called Cassiterite. So that's it there. And this issue had a bit of a Poldark theme. So it was inspired by the idea of layers, so layers like in the cliff face, because if you've ever watched Poldark, there's a lot of kind of striding along the cliff tops or striding on the beach, and just this idea of layers in the cliff face. So this is my original swatch, or one of them. So you can see here there's these sort of slip stitch ridges and garter ridges. And then down here is a cable pattern. And then at the bottom there is a garter stitch portion. So there's layers going one way and layers going another way, and layers at the bottom. So it's supposed to be like quite a large cozy shawl that you could wear at the beach, or you know, on a walk, keep you really warm. So this is the original one. Oh, actually, I'll show you this is my design submission. So every so often magazines have a submission call, and they ask for ideas from designers for patterns, and they maybe have like a Pinterest, a mood board on Pinterest, and a description of the kind of things that they're looking for. So, and then you put together a submission idea. So you can see here I've got a photograph of my swatch, and then I've got a drawing here of what the finished shawl would look like with a little bit of explanation of the different sections. I've also got here, there's an explanation about the inspiration and how that fits into the theme, and then there's a bit here about the construction of it. And I've also got on the other side is a bit of a suggestion of colour ideas that might work, and also an idea that you could knit it in three. You could do the 3 different sections in a different colour, which would be a really nice effect. And I can see here I've got a folder. I keep a folder of all these design submissions that I put in, and attached to this one is, if you can see that, a kind of drawing. It's me trying to work out which cable would fit in to the repeat. So when you got past this first slip stitch section, this bit, how would the stitches divide for this cable portion, and what kind of cable could you put in to the shawl, because it's a triangular top-down shawl, so it's growing in the middle and it's growing at each edge. So you need to just make sure that when you start that cable section, you would have the right number of stitches to divide into this stitch pattern repeat. So this is the original one. This one's knitted in Yarn Stories 4-ply merino. It's a really nice blue. It's like maybe a sort of French navy or a royal blue. It's not navy and it's not blue. It's just a really nice shade. It's actually coming out a bit bluer on the screen than it is in real life, but it's very, very cozy. I wore this a lot earlier this year when we had all that snow in the UK, kind of March, April time. It's really warm, and it's, you know, like a big hug basically. So that was released this time last year in Knit Now magazine. That was issue 81, and so you can still get that digitally on their website. And then over in the summer of this year, Countess Ablaze had her Tits Out Collective, which was a charity fundraiser, and it was a response to some misogynistic business stuff that she'd come across. If you go over to her website, she's got a blog post all about it, but it was a huge event, and there was a massive participation from designers, indie dyers, all kinds of makers, you know, stitch markers and project bags and shawl pins and things like that. So as part of that, I decided I had the rights for this pattern had come back to me, and so I decided that I would re-knit it in one of the Tits Out Collective yarns and sort of reissue it as a Tits Out Collective pattern and help to raise some money. So everybody who bought the pattern in that month of July, I donated £1 to the Scottish Women's Aid charity. So the one that I knitted was in Helen from the Wool Kitchens yarn. So it's a smaller 4-ply version, So there's the slip stitches, and there's the cables, and then the garter stitch at the bottom. So these yarns were all limited edition. So this yarn's not available anymore, but you might have bought some other Tits Out Collective yarn that you would be perfect for this. This is quite a busy one, but it does, you know, this is a wee swatch that I did. This is Helen's, the Wool Kitchen's yarn. This is called, now I always say Stow Lips, but I think she says Stow Lips, which you can still, which she's still dyeing, I think. It's kind of, it's going a bit pinker than it is in real life on the camera there. So the pattern does work quite well with solids and with variegated yarns. So that's a small 4-ply version. And then the other one that I did was a large 4-ply. So if you had 2 skeins, you could either do, you could do it in 2 colours. So you could do down to the start of the cables with 1 skein of 4-ply, and then you could do the cables and the garter stitch bit with the other skein, or you could do the whole thing in 1 colour, or you could actually do it striped. I'll put a photograph in because I couldn't find my little swatch, but I did a wee swatch, like a mini shawl, in 2 stripes of Helen Wool Kitchen's yarn, and it looked really good. So that would be another way to do it. If you had 2 quite contrasty yarns, 4-ply skeins, you could stripe them. And I think because the pattern is so I'm looking for my little swatch, because the pattern is quite graphic, I think it stands up to striping. So like just 2 rows in one and then 2 rows in the other. So yeah, so the different sizes, I got a bit sidetracked. So there's the small 4-ply version, which is like your 100 grams, 400 meters. Then you can do, this is double knit. I think I said 4-ply before. This is a double knit version. So I think it uses 200 grams. So that's really big. I'm not going to put it back on actually. It's really big and cozy. I'm just going to check that it is 200 grams. No, it's 250, so yeah, 250 grams in this one of double knit. Or you could use the 2 skeins of 4-ply to make a bigger, this is the biggest one. Now this one, because the Tits Out Collective was quite a short time scale to get everything ready to go out, I started knitting this one with some Old Maiden Ant yarn that I had, 2 skeins that were different colours. And so I knitted the first half, which was, I think this one's called Hunky Dory. It was a limited edition yarn that Lilith dyed. And you can see the slip stitches, it looks really nice. But then the other skein that I was going to pair with this, it didn't match. It didn't look right. But because it was such a short time scale, I didn't have time to rip this back and just start all over again. And I ordered 2 skeins of this one, which is called Pink, P-Y-N-K. So I just added it, I just started knitting the second half. But what I had planned to do was to rip back this bit. Well, knit the top half in the pink colourway and then graft them together, but I didn't get to do it. I'm still planning to do it. I haven't woven in my ends. I'm still sort of thinking that I'll do it. So this is bigger than the DK. This is the biggest one. So this is 2 100 gram skeins. I mean, it's massive. Look, that's really, really cozy. And again, you could do this. You could do it in 2 colours if you had 2 that went together nicely. Then you could do that. You could do it in 1 colour, you could stripe it.
So there's a lot of different options. So if you've got some Tits Out collective yarn that you bought over the summer, this pattern would be a really great way to use it, because there's a variety of ways that you could do it. So over the weekend, Demelza shawl is going to be on at 15% off. So that runs from today, Saturday, until lunchtime on Monday, UK time. And you can, if you put in the code SS for Shawl Saturday _ Demelza, then you'll get 15% off. I'll put all the links down below. So that's this week's shawl. All these different versions. I might just put this little one back on. It's actually not been too cold recently here in Edinburgh. I don't know what it's been like with you, but when I'm sitting doing something, you feel cold, but when you're moving about you get quite warm. And actually I've had to take this jumper off quite a few times because I just get a bit hot, but it's going to be amazing when the weather's really cold. So I just wanted to share with you my Advent cowl that I was knitting in the last episode, which I finished. So this was in Rusty Ferret's little mini skeins, which she calls futrets, which I think is the word for a baby ferret, which is really cute. So it's quite big, and it's done by striping the mini skeins, so you get kind of a fade effect. And there is a portion of reverse stocking stitch, and the rest of it is in stocking stitch, and it's knitted in the round. I just love the way the colours kind of melt into each other, and doing this reverse stocking stitch bit gives it a bit more interest, so you're not just knitting round and round. You've got to you get to the marker and you do something different, and then you're back to the beginning of the round again. And because you're always striping, you're also changing colour, so it's nice and interesting, keeps your interest. So, and I'll just show you, it's quite big as well, so you can wear it more loosely, just like round twice, or you could, you know, tighten it up and wear it quite close. So it's quite versatile. So at the beginning there, I was just knitting on, I'm doing another version, which I've just started. It's really rainbowy, you see. So this one is done with these tiny, tiny little skeins. They're 5 grams, and I have 25 of them. So it's going to come out a bit wider than this one. And these are from Cuddle Bums. So she does a lot of the little mini skein sets. You go over to her website and have a wee look. There's different options. These kind of ones would be good for an advent calendar. Because, well, this one is 25, but I know she does another one that's 20. So would be not quite a full advent calendar, but there are a lot of yarn advent calendars out there. But this pattern would really work with all kinds of mini skeins, or even scraps that you had. So I'm just trying to write up the pattern just now. I'm a little bit behind schedule with it. I would have liked to have had it out at the beginning of November, but I'm getting there. And hopefully I'll have it released pretty soon, ready for the start of Advent and for people to have a little bit of time to get their yarn organised. It would also be a really nice one to do if you go to a knit night or anything, and you could swap mini skeins or something like that and use other people's yarns. So that's coming very soon, and it's fun to knit. So thank you very much for watching episode 3. If you want to find me anywhere, I have a website, which is maddieharveydesigns.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, which is @harveyknits. Have a great weekend. Bye.